For 10 years, Lady Alara Harrington never uttered a sound. Society scorned her, her cruel aunt controlled her, and the world dismissed her as the silent lamb of Mayfair, a broken, wealthy prize to be won. They assumed her mind was as empty as her voice. But in the crowded, cruel ballrooms of Victorian London, one man saw the storm behind her silence. Alistair, the Duke of Northwood, a man weary of the world's noise, found himself drawn to the one woman who made none. But when a vile plot threatened her very life, Alara was forced to break her decade of silence, and the single word she spoke would change his world forever. The ballroom at Devonshire House glittered with a suffocating brilliance. 3,000 candles blazed in the crystal chandeliers, reflecting in the polished floor and the jewels of the women who navigated it. To Lady Alara Harrington, the light was a physical assault, and the noise, the shrill laughter, the booming orchestral music, the relentless hum of gossip, felt like sandpaper against her nerves. She stood near a marble column, her shoulders set in a line of perfect, rigid grace, a glass of untouched lemonade in her gloved hand. Her gown, a deep sapphire velvet, was a shadow against the pale pinks and golds favoured by the other debutantes. She had been in society for 2 seasons of this. At 20, she was already on the verge of being labelled a spinster, not for lack of beauty or fortune, but for her impenetrable, unnerving silence. "Utterly tragic," hissed a voice nearby. Alara didn't need to turn to identify the speaker. Lady Cowper, a woman with a face like a dried apple. "All that Harrington shipping money, and the girl is a simpleton, an empty vessel." "My dear," replied another, "I heard she's not simple, but mad. Went mute the night her parents died in the fire. The shock, you know. Cooked her brain." Alara's fingers tightened on her glass. Empty. Simple. Mad. She heard them all. Her silence was not a void. It was a shield. And behind it, she was screaming. "Alara, darling, stop lurking in the shadows like a bat." The voice was loud, false, and drilled directly into her ear. Her aunt, Lady Beatrice Harrington, descended upon her. Beatrice, her late uncle's widow, and Alara's guardian, was a vision in arsenic green satin, her face powdered into a brittle mask. "You will never catch a husband if you look so mournful. Smile. Lord Vane is asking for a dance." Alara's gaze flickered to Lord Marcus Vane. His smile was all teeth, his eyes cold. He was her aunt's choice, a man who smelled of brandy and desperation, his own family's fortune long since gambled away. Alara gave a small, almost imperceptible shake of her head. Beatrice's fingers dug into Alara's arm like talons. Her smile remained plastered on, but her voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "Do not," she seethed, "defy me here. You will be pleasant to Lord Vane. You will sit with him. You will nod. It is all you are good for, you silent little fool. Do you understand me?" Alara stared at a point just past her aunt's shoulder. She offered no nod, no acknowledgement. This was her only weapon, absolute, infuriating passivity. With a noise of pure frustration, Beatrice released her. "Fine, be a statue, but you will sit where I tell you." As Beatrice swept away to intercept Lord Vane, Alara felt another gaze upon her. This one was different, not curious, not pitying, and not cruel. It was heavy, assessing, and profoundly still. Across the ballroom, leaning against the far wall, stood Alistair, the Duke of Northwood. His reputation filled every room he entered. A man of immense wealth and power, he was the most eligible bachelor in England, and the most remote. Dark-haired, with a severe, handsome face, he looked upon the glittering society with an air of complete, unadulterated boredom. People said he was cold, that his time in the military during a brief colonial conflict had hollowed him out. He avoided debutantes, ignored matriarchs, and danced only the obligatory sets. Yet, he was staring directly at her. Ilara's breath hitched. Most people looked at her. He seemed to be looking into her. His gaze didn't demand a response. It simply waited. Lord Vane was suddenly before her, bowing with exaggerated flair. "Lady Ilara, you look radiant. Your aunt insisted you were saving a place for me." Ilara flinched as he took her hand, his thumb brushing too familiarly over her glove. She wanted to rip her hand away, to scrub her skin. She inclined her head, the barest minimum of politeness, and allowed him to lead her toward the suffocating, flower-draped alcoves. "The two of you look perfect together," Beatrice trilled, loud enough for the Duke to hear. Should he be listening? A true match. Ilara sat, arranging her velvet skirts, and prepared to endure. Vane prattled on about his horses, his clubs, his opinions. Ilara simply watched the room, her eyes occasionally, unwillingly, sliding back to the Duke. He had not moved. His grey eyes were still fixed on her alcove. He watched Vane lean in, watched Ilara's posture stiffen, watched her stare at her lap. A slow, cold anger began to build in Alistair's chest. He detested bullies. And the entire scene, the predator, the bait, and the circling vulture of an aunt, stank of coercion. Later, Ilara managed to escape to the terrace for a breath of cool night air. Her maid, Amelia, materialized from the shadows, a shawl in her hands. Amelia was the only person in the world who knew her. "You're trembling, my lady," Amelia whispered, draping the wool over her shoulders. Ilara lifted her hand. Her fingers moved in a rapid, complex series of signs, a language they had built together over 10 years. "Aunt Beatrice is pushing Vane on me. He is a loathsome man. I felt soiled by his presence." "I know," Amelia said, her face tight with worry. "But what can we do? She controls everything until you marry or come of age. Coming of age won't stop her. She'll have me declared incompetent. My silence is her proof. She wouldn't dare. She would. She will." A sound from the doorway made them both freeze. The Duke of Northwood stood there, silhouetted against the bright ballroom. He held 2 glasses of champagne. Amelia curtsied low, her eyes wide with panic. Ilara simply stood, trapped. The Duke walked slowly onto the terrace. He didn't approach Ilara directly, but moved to the balustrade, looking out over the dark gardens. He set 1 glass down on the stone rail. "The air is preferable out here," he said. His voice was a low baritone, calm and devoid of social artifice. "The noise in there is deafening." He glanced at Ilara. He made no move to bow, no formal greeting. He simply acknowledged her as a fellow person. "They are playing Strauss. I find Strauss to be aggressively cheerful." Ilara was stunned. He was speaking to her, not about her. He didn't seem to expect an answer. He took a sip of his own champagne. "Your aunt seems determined to see you married to Lord Vane." Ilara's posture became rigid. She looked at him, her eyes wide with alarm. "My apologies," he said immediately. "That was forward. It is none of my concern." He paused, studying her. "But his reputation is poor. I recommend the Times financial pages. His investments are as hollow as his compliments." Ilara's eyes widened further. He was warning her. He gestured to the glass he had set down. "This is for you, if you'd like it. If not, the potted palm can have it." He turned, and without another word, walked back into the ballroom. Ilara stared at the glass. Amelia, shaking, whispered, "My lady, did the Duke of Northwood just speak to you?" Ilara reached out a trembling hand and picked up the glass. She looked back into the ballroom, but he was gone. She brought the glass to her lips and tasted the faint, sharp bubbles. It tasted like a rescue. The encounter on the terrace shifted something in the firmament of London society. The Duke of Northwood, a man who ignored everyone, had sought out the silent lamb. The gossip columns, including the notorious Tatler, were alight with speculation. Lady Beatrice was furious. "He's mocking you," she snapped at Ilara over breakfast 2 days later, crumpling the Morning Post. "He is a cruel, arrogant man, and he is playing a game. You will ignore him. Lord Vane is calling this afternoon. Wear the blue silk." Ilara simply stared at the newspaper headline. "Duke of Northwood finds his voice in silence." It was absurd, and it was dangerous. It put a target on her back. That afternoon, she didn't wear the blue silk. She wore a simple grey muslin daydress and retreated to the one place her aunt rarely ventured, the family library. It was her sanctuary, her parents' legacy. The scent of old leather and paper was the only comfort she had. She was cataloguing her father's collection of botanical prints when the butler, a man loyal to Beatrice, announced a visitor. "His Grace, the Duke of Northwood, to see you, Lady Ilara." Ilara froze, a dusty print of a digitalis purpurea in her hand. Her aunt was out. She was alone. She nodded to the butler, her heart hammering a frantic rhythm against her ribs. Alistair entered the library. In the daylight, without the artifice of the ballroom, his presence was even more formidable. His dark suit, impeccably tailored on Savile Row, was severe. His features looked as though they were carved from granite. He did not wait for her to gesture. He simply walked to the center of the room, his gaze sweeping over the towering shelves. "A remarkable collection. Your father had excellent taste. That's a first edition of Redout's Les Liliacées on the top shelf, isn't it?" Ilara looked at him, astonished. He knew books. She nodded, setting her print down. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to a chair. She nodded again. She resumed her own seat, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. The silence stretched, but unlike the suffocating silences with her aunt, this one was comfortable. He wasn't demanding anything of her. He finally looked at her. "Lady Ilara, I came here to apologize." She frowned, confused. "My actions at the ball caused you undue attention. That was not my intent. I was annoyed by Lord Vane, and I acted impulsively." Ilara picked up a small slate and a piece of chalk from the desk. Her movements were precise. She wrote, "You have nothing to apologize for, Your Grace." The warning was kind. He read the slate, and a small, almost imperceptible smile touched his lips. Kind. I am not often accused of that. Honest, perhaps. Brusque, certainly. But not kind. He leaned forward slightly. "Why do you permit your aunt to treat you so?" Ilara's hand trembled as she wiped the slate clean. "She is my guardian. The law is on her side." "The law," Alistair said with distaste, "is an ass. And Vane? He is her choice. She believes my condition makes me unmarriageable to anyone else. He is willing to take me for my dowry." "And what do you want?" he asked. The chalk hovered over the slate. She looked down, unable to write the truth. Free. She couldn't write it. Instead, she wrote, "I wish to be left alone." To be left alone, he mused, is the most profound luxury in the world. But it is not the same as being free. You are a prisoner in this house. Ilara looked up, startled. He saw it. He truly saw it. The library doors. "Really, Ilara, you must learn to receive guests in the drawing room." Lady Beatrice's voice preceded her. She burst into the room, her face a mask of false hospitality that barely concealed her rage. "Your Grace, what an unexpected—" Honour. I had no idea you were calling. Alistair rose slowly to his feet. His demeanour was polite, but his eyes were chips of ice. Lady Beatrice, I was admiring Lady Alara's library, and in fact, inviting her to view the greenhouses at Northwood House. My botanist has just succeeded in flowering a Victoria Amazonica. I thought she might appreciate it. Beatrice's smile faltered. An invitation from the Duke of Northwood was a command, and a staggering social coup. But it was for Alara. How thoughtful, Beatrice managed. But Alara does not travel well. Her nerves, you know. She is very delicate. She seems quite steady to me, Alistair said flatly. I will send my personal carriage for her tomorrow at 2. It is a closed carriage, and I assure you the ride is smooth. She will be accompanied by her maid, of course. Good day, ladies. He bowed, gave Alara one last, long look, and was gone. Beatrice rounded on Alara the moment the front door closed. What did you do? She shrieked, striking the slate from Alara's hand. It clattered to the floor and cracked. What did you write to him, you manipulative little viper? Are you trying to ruin me? Alara did not flinch. She bent, calmly picked up the 2 pieces of her broken slate, and walked out of the library, leaving her aunt trembling with rage in the centre of the room. The next day, Alistair's carriage, a dark, perfectly sprung brougham bearing the Northwood crest, arrived precisely at 2. Amelia, pale with fear, accompanied Alara. Northwood House was a palace of stone and glass in the heart of London. The greenhouses were a marvel, a sprawling iron and glass cathedral filled with exotic plants from across the empire. Alistair was waiting for them. Lady Alara, Amelia. He nodded to them both. Welcome. He led them through humid corridors of ferns and orchids. He spoke of the plants, the difficulty of their cultivation. He explained the steam pipe heating system. He spoke as a colleague, an equal enthusiast. Alara was captivated. She pointed to a rare, black-purple Tacca chantrieri, the bat flower. Ah, yes, Alistair said. A strange one. Frightens most people. They see menace in it. I find it resilient. It thrives in the deep shade where nothing else will grow. He was looking at her as he said it. Alara felt a flush rise in her chest. He led her to the grand, central dome, where a massive pond held the Victoria Amazonica. Its giant, platter-like leaves floated on the surface, and in the centre, a huge cream-white flower was opening. It only blooms for 48 hours, Alistair said, his voice softer. And on the second night, it will turn purple before it dies. All that effort, for such a short time. Alara reached into her satchel and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook and a pencil. She wrote, Perhaps it is not the length of the bloom that matters, but the fact that it blooms at all against all odds. Alistair read the note. He looked at her, his stern face transformed by a genuine, startling admiration. You are not at all what they say you are, Lady Alara. Who do they say I am, Your Grace? She wrote. They say you are empty. I find you are. Full of observation. The rest of the world is empty. They are the ones making all the noise. A shout from the greenhouse entrance shattered the moment. There you are. I knew I'd find you here. Lord Marcus Vane strode in, his polished boots clicking on the tiles. He ignored Alistair and Amelia, making straight for Alara. Your aunt was worried sick. You shouldn't be here alone. It's not proper. She is not alone, Lord Vane, Alistair said. His voice was dangerously quiet. She is with me. And her maid. You, however, are trespassing. Trespassing? I am a guest of Lady Harrington's. I am here to escort my future, well, to escort Alara home. Vane grabbed Ilara's arm. "Come along, my dear. You've had your little adventure." Ilara pulled back, her eyes flashing with sudden, hot anger. "Release her," Alistair commanded. "This is a family matter, Northwood. Stay out of it," Vane sneered, his grip tightening. "I said," Alistair repeated, taking one step forward. "Release her, or I will have my footman break your wrist. He is a very large man, and he enjoys his work." Vane, seeing the absolute lack of hyperbole in the Duke's eyes, abruptly let go of Ilara's arm, leaving red marks on her skin. "Get out," Alistair said. Vane, humiliated and furious, shot Ilara a look of pure venom. "You'll regret this, you mute little witch." He turned and stormed out of the greenhouse. Ilara was shaking, not from fear, but from a profound, vibrating rage. She stared at the red marks on her arm. "He hurt you," Alistair stated. It was not a question. Ilara looked up at him, her eyes bright with unshed tears of frustration. "I will take you home," he said, "and I promise you, Lady Ilara, he will not touch you again." The ride back to Harrington House was tense. Alistair said little, but Ilara could feel the anger radiating from him. When they arrived, he escorted her to the door. "You are not safe with them," he said, not as an observation, but as a final judgment. Ilara looked at him, her heart aching. She wrote in her notebook, "I have nowhere else to go." Alistair's jaw tightened. "We will find somewhere." He bowed and left. Beatrice was waiting in the foyer. She had clearly been briefed by Vane. Her face was pale with a fury that eclipsed all her previous outbursts. "You," she hissed, "have ruined everything, everything. Lord Vane is threatening to withdraw his suit. After you encouraged the Duke, you humiliated him." Amelia stepped forward. "My lady, it was Lord Vane who—" "Silence!" Beatrice shrieked. This is your fault. Pack your things. You are dismissed." Ilara's head snapped up. She stared at Beatrice, horrified. Amelia was her lifeline, her only friend. "No," Amelia whispered, tears welling. "Please, my lady, I've served her for 10 years, and for 10 years you have encouraged this circus." Beatrice gestured to Ilara. "You and your secret codes. You've filled her head with nonsense, made her think she is special. She is nothing, and you are nothing. Get out of my house." Ilara grabbed her aunt's arm. It was the first time she had initiated physical contact with her in a decade. Her grip was surprisingly strong. She shook her head violently, her eyes blazing. Beatrice, shocked by the strength, slapped her. The sound echoed in the marble foyer. Ilara's head snapped to the side, a red mark blooming on her pale cheek. Time stopped. Ilara didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She simply retreated. The fire in her eyes died, replaced by a flat, cold emptiness that was far more terrifying. She dropped her hand, turned, and walked slowly up the grand staircase, leaving both Amelia and her stunned aunt behind. She locked her bedroom door. She didn't turn on the lamps. She sat on the floor, in the dark, and the memories she held at bay every second of every day finally broke through the dam. The fire, the smell of smoke, thick and acrid, the heat. She was 10 years old. Her mother, her beautiful, kind mother, was hiding her in a linen press on the 3rd floor. "You must be silent, Ilara. Do you understand? Not a sound. No matter what you hear, promise me. Be silent." She had nodded, her eyes wide with terror. Her mother had kissed her, her face smudged with soot, and locked the door. Ilara had huddled in the dark, smelling lavender and smoke. She heard them, shouting. Men's voices. Not her father's. Rough, angry voices. They were looking for something. The sound of splintering wood, a crash, and then her mother's scream. A short, terrible sound, cut off. Ilara had forgotten. She had screamed, too, a high, piercing wail. "Mama!" The footsteps stopped. They paused, right outside the linen press. A rough voice. "What was that?" Sounded like a cat. "Come on. The safe is on the second floor. Let's get what we came for. The fire's taking the whole wing." They had left. She had been saved, but her mother was dead. Her father, dead. The fire, they later said, had been set to cover a robbery gone wrong. The men were never caught. The investigation, run by a distant cousin, was quickly and quietly closed. But Ilara knew. Her scream had stopped them. If she hadn't screamed, they would have kept going. They wouldn't have found her. Or perhaps her scream had stopped them from finding her. But her mother's scream, no, it was her own. Her mother's last words, "Be silent." She had failed. Her voice had brought the danger. Her voice was a betrayal. And so, from that moment in the smoky, dark linen press, she had never used it again. She had locked it away, along with the memory of her mother's face. A soft knock came at the door. "Ilara, my lady, please." It was Amelia. Ilara pushed herself up and opened the door. Amelia stood there, her bags packed, her face stained with tears. "She means it," Amelia whispered. "She's given me an hour." Ilara stared at her, her mind clicking into a place of cold, desperate clarity. She pulled Amelia into the room and shut the door. She retrieved her notebook. "She is firing you to isolate me, to break me. So I will marry Vane." "I know," Amelia wept. "You will not go," Ilara wrote. "You will go to Northwood House, now. Go to the Duke. Tell him what happened. Tell him she hit me. Tell him he must help." Amelia's eyes widened. "Go to the Duke? My lady, I can't just present myself." "You must. He is the only one who can. Go, use the servants' stairs. Run." Amelia looked at the fierce, desperate resolve in Ilara's eyes. She nodded, wiping her face. "I will. Be safe, my lady. Lock this door." Amelia slipped out. Ilara locked the door again. She sat by the window, watching the street below. She watched for an hour. Then 2. The sun began to set, painting the London sky in shades of bruised purple and blood orange. She heard her aunt calling for dinner. She didn't move. She heard her aunt pound on the door. She didn't move. Finally, just as true darkness fell, a carriage pulled up. Not her aunt's, and not Vane's. It was the Duke's dark brougham. But it wasn't the Duke who emerged. It was a stern-looking older woman in severe black, and behind her, 2 large men who were clearly not footmen. Beatrice's voice rose from the foyer. "Who are you? How dare you enter my house unannounced?" "I am Mrs. Davies," the woman's voice replied, crisp and clear. "I am the Duke of Northwood's housekeeper. I am here for Lady Ilara Harrington. The Duke has reason to believe she is in danger." "In danger? In her own home? That is slander. Get out." "My instructions," Mrs. Davies continued, unfazed, "are to retrieve Lady Ilara and her maid, Amelia, and escort them to Northwood House, where they will be guests of the Duke's sister, Lady Caroline, who arrives on the morning train. The Duke has already sent a wire to your solicitor regarding his concerns for Lady Ilara's welfare and the questionable management of her estate." There was a dead, horrified silence from Beatrice. "These men," Mrs. Davies said, "are here to ensure my lady's safe passage. They will collect her things." Footsteps pounded up the stairs. "Lady Ilara," Mrs. Davies called. "It is safe. We are here for you." Ilara unlocked her door. The hallway was in chaos. Beatrice was white-faced, gaping. The 2 men, professional and grim, stood by. Mrs. Davies looked at Ilara, her gaze softening as she saw the red mark, now a faint bruise on her cheek. "Oh, you poor child. she murmured. "It's all right now. You are safe." Elara walked past her aunt without a single glance. She walked down the stairs, out the front door, and got into the Duke's carriage, where Amelia was already waiting inside, safe. She did not look back. Northwood House was not a home. It was a fortress of quiet dignity. Mrs. Davies installed Elara and Amelia in a private guest wing, spacious and furnished with a quiet elegance that soothed Elara's frayed nerves. Lady Caroline, the Duke's married sister, arrived the next morning. She was a kind, sensible woman with her brother's grey eyes, and she immediately took charge, establishing a sense of unbreachable propriety. "My brother is unconventional, Lady Elara," Caroline said over tea, "but he is not wrong. You are safe here. Beatrice will not dare cross our threshold. Alistair is meeting with his solicitors this very moment. He is concerned about your aunt's trusteeship." Elara, for the first time in 10 years, felt the knot of tension in her shoulders begin to unwind. She was safe. Alistair did not visit her for 2 days. He was, as his sister said, mobilizing. When he finally requested her presence, it was in his private study, a room even larger than her father's library, smelling of sandalwood and justice. "Lady Elara," he said, dispensing with pleasantries as he gestured for her to sit. "I have had my men look into your finances. Lady Beatrice and Lord Vane have been creative." He laid a ledger on the desk. "Your aunt has been systematically selling off assets from your father's estate to pay her own debts and, it appears, to fund Lord Vane's gambling. The amounts are staggering. The fire that killed your parents. The investigation was closed by a magistrate who, coincidentally, was a deep creditor of your aunt's late husband." Elara felt the blood drain from her face. "Are you saying—" "It wasn't a robbery," she wrote in her notebook. "I am saying the robbery was convenient, and the fire even more so. Your aunt gained control of everything. Vane has been her partner in this for the last year. Their plan was simple. Marry you to him, and they would have permanent, legal access to the entire Harrington fortune." Elara's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the pencil. "My parents—" "I do not know the truth of the fire, Elara," Alistair said, his voice softening. He had used her given name. "But I know what is happening now. Beatrice is desperate. She has been served notice of my investigation. She will not be able to touch your money. But it means she is cornered. And a cornered animal is the most dangerous. What will she do? She will try to get to you. She will try to discredit you. She may try to have you committed. She will claim your silence is madness and that I have abducted you." Elara looked at him, terrified. "You will not leave this house," he ordered. "Not without me or my sister. Do you understand?" She nodded, her whole body trembling. A week passed. It was a strange, peaceful limbo. Elara spent hours in the greenhouses and the library. She and Lady Caroline took carriage rides in the park, always with a footman. She and Alistair met for tea every afternoon. They spoke of books, of botany, of the world. Or rather, he spoke, and she wrote, and he listened to her written words with more attention than anyone had ever given her spoken ones. He learned of her fears. He learned of her passion for astronomy. She learned that his sternness was a defense against a world he found too loud, too shallow. He told her about his time in the Sudan, the chaos and the screaming, and why he valued the profound luxury of being left alone. They were two quiet people in a noisy world, finding a common language. The danger, however, was not gone. It was merely regrouping. One afternoon, Lady Caroline had a headache, and Elara, feeling restless, took a stroll in the walled garden of Northwood House. It was supposed to be secure. Amelia was with her, carrying a basket of cuttings. "It's so peaceful here, my lady," Amelia said, snipping a rose. "It feels like we can finally breathe." Elara nodded, a small, true smile on her face. She tilted her head back, feeling the weak autumn sun on her face. A touching scene. The silent lamb and her little shepherdess. The voice cut through the peace like a shard of glass. Elara and Amelia spun around. Lord Vane was standing by the garden gate, which was slightly ajar, and he was not alone. With him was Lady Beatrice. "You!" Beatrice snarled, her face a grotesque mask of hatred. "You thought you could run from me. You thought he could protect you. He isn't here, you little fool." "How did you get in?" Amelia cried, stepping in front of Elara. "A disgruntled footman," Vane said with a shrug, pulling a small, silver-chased pistol from his coat. "The Duke, for all his wealth, inspires very little loyalty. Now, Elara, you are going to come with us." "You're mad," Amelia shouted. "We are desperate," Beatrice corrected, her eyes darting around the garden. "He's going to ruin us." "But not if you're declared mad. A doctor is waiting, a private doctor. He will sign the papers. You will be taken to a quiet place, a sanatorium, and I will remain in control of your estate. It's all perfectly legal." "No!" Amelia screamed, and lunged for Vane. Vane, annoyed, shoved her hard. Amelia tripped over the basket and fell, her head striking the stone edge of the fountain with a sickening crack. She lay still. "Amelia!" Elara's mind screamed. She rushed to her side, shaking her. Blood was matting Amelia's hair. She was unconscious. Elara looked up at Vane and Beatrice. All the fear was gone, replaced by an ocean of glacial rage. "Don't look at me like that," Vane said, leveling the pistol at her. "It's your own fault. Now get up. Walk." Elara stood up slowly. She looked at her fallen friend. She looked at the woman who had stolen her inheritance. She looked at the man who was about to steal her life. And the trauma that had held her tongue for 10 years snapped. The promise to her mother, the fear of the fire, the self-hatred, it was all burned away by the white-hot fire of her rage. No. The sound was a croak, a dry, rusty whisper that ripped through her throat. It was the first word she had spoken to another human being in a decade. Vane and Beatrice both froze, staring at her, as if she had grown a second head. "What? What did you say?" Beatrice stammered. Elara's eyes, clear and terrifying, met Vane's. She spoke again, her voice raw from disuse, but gaining strength with every syllable. "I said no." "She can speak!" Beatrice shrieked, a new terrible panic in her voice. "Marcus, she can speak! This ruins everything!" "Shut up!" Vane yelled, panicked. He waved the gun at Elara. "It doesn't matter. No one will believe her. Get her. Now!" Beatrice lunged for Elara. Elara, surprisingly agile, sidestepped and grabbed a heavy terracotta pot. She flung it at Vane's feet. It shattered, causing him to stumble. "You witch!" Vane raised the pistol. "Vane!" The Duke of Northwood was standing at the far end of the garden. He had seen the open gate, heard the shouts. His face was a mask of pure, lethal fury. Vane, trapped, did the unthinkable. He grabbed Elara, yanking her back against his chest, and pressed the pistol muzzle to her temple. "Stay back, Northwood, or I'll scatter her mad brains all over your perfect garden." Time condensed. The garden was silent, save for Vane's harsh breathing and the distant sound of a city bell. Alistair stood perfectly still. His military training took over, slowing his perception, heightening his senses. He saw Vane's finger trembling on the trigger. He saw the terror and defiance warring in Elara's eyes. He saw Beatrice, cowering near the gate, realizing the situation had spiraled far beyond her control. "Let her go, Vane," Alistair said, his voice terrifyingly calm. "You are finished. My men are at the gate. The police are on their way. Firing that gun will only change your charge from fraud to murder." "He's lying!" Beatrice shrieked to Vane. "Shut up!" Vane snarled, pressing the gun harder against Ilara's skin. "You won't take me. I'll take her with me. She's the one who ruined it all. Speaking, lying, pretending to be mute." Ilara's heart was a drum. She could feel the cold metal of the gun against her temple. She could feel Vane's arm crushing her ribs. She looked at Alistair. His eyes met hers, and in them she saw no panic, only a terrible, focused resolve. He trusted her. She had to do something. Her voice. She had a voice. He tried to kill Amelia," Ilara said. The words were stronger now, clearer, each one a stone thrown. The vibration in her own chest was a profound shock. Alistair's eyes flickered to the fountain. "Amelia! She's alive," Ilara said, desperate to keep Alistair from attacking. He hit her. But she is alive. "It doesn't matter," Vane yelled. "One more step northward." Alistair took one, slow step to the side. "You're a coward, Vane. You've always been a coward. You hide behind women. You hide behind your family name. You hide behind her." "I am not a coward," Vane screamed, his control snapping. It was the opening Ilara needed. As Vane's grip convulsed in his rage, Ilara stamped her heel down, grinding it into his instep. Simultaneously, she threw her head back, smashing the back of her skull into his nose. There was a wet crunch. Vane roared in pain, his arm loosening instinctively. It was all Alistair needed. He moved. He was not a society duke. He was a soldier. He crossed the 10 yards between them in 3 strides. He didn't go for the gun. He struck Vane in the throat with the heel of his hand. Vane collapsed, dropping the pistol and gagging, his eyes wide with airless panic. Alistair didn't spare him a glance. He caught Ilara as she stumbled forward, pulling her against him, his arm a steel band around her. He spun her away, shielding her with his own body as he kicked the pistol skittering across the flagstones. Beatrice screamed as 2 large footmen, the same men from that night, stormed the garden and seized her. It was over. Ilara was shaking so violently she could barely stand. Alistair held her, his hand on the back of her head, pressing her face into the rough wool of his coat. "It's all right," he murmured. "You're safe. You're safe." He could feel her sobs, dry, silent, agonizing shudders. "Amelia," she whispered, her voice muffled against his chest. Alistair released her, turning to the fountain. Lady Caroline was already there, having heard the commotion. "She's breathing," Caroline called. "Her pulse is strong. Someone get the doctor." Ilara sagged in relief. Alistair turned back to her. He gently cupped her face, his gaze searching hers. He saw the bruise on her cheek from her aunt. He saw the terror fading, replaced by a profound, shattering exhaustion. "You spoke," he said, his voice rough with emotion. Ilara looked at him. The dam was broken. The silence of 10 years, a prison of her own making, had been torn down. She felt raw, exposed, terrified of the sound of her own voice. Tears streamed down her face. I... Her throat closed again, this time with panic. The silence had been a shield. Now she had nothing. "Ilara." Alistair's voice was gentle, cutting through her fear. He didn't ask her what happened. He didn't ask her why. He asked her the same question he had asked in the library, the one she had been too afraid to answer. "What do you want?" She looked at him, at this strong, quiet man who had seen her when she was invisible. He wasn't demanding she speak. He was just asking. She took a ragged breath. The last time she had spoken, She had been 10 years old and screaming for her mother. Now she was 20, and she was speaking for herself. I want... She swallowed, the muscles in her throat aching. I want to go home. My real home. My parents' home. I want it back. Her voice was not the high, clear voice of her memory. It was deeper, a little rough, quiet. Alistair stared at her, his stern face completely undone. He had a look of sheer, unadulterated wonder. He slowly, gently, brushed a tear from her cheek with his thumb. Your voice, Alistair said, his own voice thick. My God, I imagined what it would sound like. I was wrong. Elara flinched, her eyes filling with new tears. Was it ugly? Was it monstrous? No, he said, reading her expression. It's not what I mean. He leaned his forehead against hers, closing his eyes. All my life, the world has been a cacophony, shouting, demanding, lying, posturing. Just noise. He pulled back just enough to look her in the eyes. Your voice, he whispered, sounds like peace. The aftermath was swift and absolute. Lord Vane and Lady Beatrice were arrested. Amelia, diagnosed with a severe concussion, but very much alive, was moved into the main house at Northwood and fussed over by Mrs. Davies. The scandal was titanic. It ripped through Mayfair and sent tremors all the way to the offices of the Times. The Silent Lamb speaks. Duke of Northwood uncovers vast conspiracy. Lady Harrington and Lord Vane arrested for fraud, attempted kidnapping. The world, it turned out, was just as loud as Elara remembered. She retreated. The shock of the attack, combined with the profound, earth-shattering act of speaking, left her exhausted. For 3 days, she stayed in her rooms, tended by Lady Caroline. She spoke only in whispers, and only when necessary. Her voice felt foreign, a tool she didn't know how to wield. Alistair did not press her. He sent her books, flowers from the greenhouse, and short notes. Amelia is asking for jelly. My sister is boring me with gossip. Send help. On the 4th day, she found her strength. She dressed in a dark blue gown and went to his study. He was on the telephone, a new and startling invention, speaking to his solicitor. Yes, I want the maximum charges. I don't care about the scandal. They will not see the light of day. Thank you, Mr. Henderson. He hung up the receiver and saw her standing in the doorway. Elara. He stood, his relief palpable. You are looking better. I came to thank you, she said. Her voice was still quiet but steady. You are the one who saved yourself, Elara. You, and your voice. No, she said, walking into the room. I was silent because of what happened to my parents. I thought my voice was a danger, a betrayal. A child's burden, Alistair said softly. And you carried it for 10 years. You are the strongest person I have ever known. She looked down at her hands. Beatrice and Vane. What will happen? They will go to prison, Alistair said simply. Their private doctor has already confessed. The footman has confessed. The ledgers, your testimony and mine, they are utterly ruined. They will never harm you again. And my home? The solicitors are drawing up the papers now. Your aunt's guardianship is void. You are 20 years old. You are your own woman. The house, the estate, the fortune, it is all yours, unconditionally. Elara sank into a chair, the news too vast to comprehend. Free. The word she had been afraid to even write. She was free. What will you do now? He asked. She looked up at him. I don't know. I need to learn to be in the world again. To speak. She touched her throat. It feels strange. Then practice, he said, with a small smile. Tell me about the botanical print you were holding, the digitalis." And so she did. She spoke for an hour. She told him about her father's collection, about the way he taught her the Latin names, about her mother's rose garden. Her voice was rusty, hesitant at first, but as she spoke of the things she loved, it gained warmth and colour. Alistair watched her. His heart, which he had long considered a purely functional organ, aching with an emotion so profound it left him breathless. He had been drawn to her silence because it was a refuge. He was falling in love with her voice because it was her. The trial was a formality. Beatrice, faced with irrefutable evidence, collapsed in the courtroom. Vane, arrogant to the last, tried to blame her, but the jury was out for less than an hour. Ilara had to testify. Standing in the witness box, the entire world watching, she looked at the two people who had tried to destroy her. The barrister asked, "Lady Ilara, can you confirm that this woman, Lady Beatrice Harrington, systematically defrauded your estate and conspired to have you falsely committed?" Ilara stood tall. Her voice, no longer a whisper, rang out clear and true in the quiet of the Old Bailey. "She did." "And did Lord Vane assault you and your maid with a deadly weapon?" "He did." She was the silent lamb, no more. She was the woman who had brought down two of society's most corrupt figures. When she left the courtroom, the press for once was silent, awed by the quiet dignity of the woman they had mocked for so long. 2 months later, Ilara stood in the library of Harrington House. Her house. It had been scrubbed clean of Beatrice's presence. The heavy, arsenic-green drapes were gone, replaced with light cream linen. The air smelled of beeswax and her mother's favourite potpourri of lavender and lemon. She was not alone. Alistair, the Duke of Northwood, was standing by the fireplace, watching her. "It suits you," he said. "The house, it's breathing again. Like you." Ilara smiled. It was a full, genuine smile that lit her entire face. "It feels like mine again. Amelia is already terrorizing the new housekeeper, insisting the silver be polished exactly as my mother liked it." "Amelia," Alistair said, "is a tyrant. I'm glad she's your problem now, not mine." They laughed. The sound of her own laughter was still a surprise to Ilara, a sudden, bright music. She had spent the last 2 months finding her voice. She had dismissed the entire staff that had been loyal to Beatrice. She had hired her own solicitors, her own accountants. She had, with Alistair's quiet guidance, taken control of the Harrington shipping empire. The board of directors, expecting a frightened girl, were stunned to meet a woman of sharp intelligence and iron will. She turned to Alistair. I would never have. I would still be a prisoner, if not for you." "I did very little," he said, moving closer. "I just listened." "You listened to my silence," she corrected, her voice soft. "No one else ever did. They just saw an empty space. You saw me." "I did," he said. He was standing very close to her now. The scent of sandalwood and the clean wool of his coat filled her senses. "And I see you now, Ilara, and I hear you. And frankly, I find I am reluctant to be anywhere else." Ilara's heart sped up. "Alistair, I came here today," he said, "not as your protector, not as your friend. I came here to ask you a question." He took her hands. His were large and warm. "I have lived my life seeking peace. I thought that meant solitude. I thought it meant insulating myself from the world. I was wrong." He looked into her eyes. "Peace is not the absence of noise. Peace is the sound of your voice in a quiet room. It's the sound of your mind working, whether you write it on a slate or speak it aloud. You are my peace, Ilara." He swallowed, the formidable Duke suddenly looking vulnerable. "I am asking, if you would be willing to marry a very stern, very boring man who will likely spend the rest of his life just listening to you. Elara felt the tears well, but this time they were not tears of fear or anger. They were tears of pure, unadulterated joy. She had rehearsed this. She had imagined this moment. She had known it was coming, but she didn't use any of the words she had planned. She simply rose on her toes, cupped his stern, handsome face in her hands, and said the one word that mattered. Yes. He kissed her then. It was not the chaste, polite kiss of a society match. It was a kiss of profound relief, of two solitudes finding a home. It was the end of the silence. It was the beginning of everything else. She was bullied for her silence, but the right person wasn't waiting to hear her speak. He was waiting to understand her quiet. Lady Elara found her voice not just to scream for help, but to claim her life, her power, and the love she deserved. She proved that true strength isn't about being the loudest person in the room, but about having the courage to speak your truth, even if it's just a whisper. Thank you so much for joining us for this dramatic story. What did you think of Elara's transformation? Do you believe the Duke was right to intervene? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We read every single one. If you loved Elara's journey and want more stories of love, drama, and resilience, please show your support. Hit that like button, share this video with a friend who loves a great story, and most importantly, subscribe to our channel and ring that notification bell. We have so many more stories to share with you. Thanks for listening.